I'm Jeff Klein, Executive Director of the Wharton Leadership Program. And this is Knowledge at Wharton. I'm joined today by Stuart Friedman, author, professor, and an influential expert on leading from the point of view of the whole person. Stu's new book, Leading the Life You Want, Skills for Integrating Work and Life, has just been released by the Harvard Business Press. Stu, thanks so much for being here.
It's great to be here, Jeff. Thank you for joining me in this conversation.
Of course. So let's just start. I mean, Leading the Life You Want, it builds on decades of your research, right? Both in leadership development as well as work-life integration. What led to this book for you?
Well, I published Total Leadership, which is kind of the predecessor book,
Sure.
in 2008, which is the story of my course, which I've been teaching here at Wharton since 2001, since creating it when I was on leave from Wharton as head of leadership development for Ford Motor Company.
Right.
And in Total Leadership, what I've done is to basically tell the story of that course, which generally takes about 4 months to go through. And it's a step-by-step series of activities that I ask students and clients and readers around the world now in a MOOC that I teach, a massive open online course on Coursera, to go through each of these different steps in a progression. So it's very kind of systematic, and one step builds on the other. And that's worked really well.
But it's been immensely popular here.
What was missing, though, from the Total Leadership book, and what drove me to write Leading the Life You Want, were two things. First, I get a lot of pushback from people who were saying to me, "Well, Stu, all this work and life stuff sounds great, but to be truly successful in the professional world or in the public world, I mean, come on, you've got to sacrifice everything in your life, right?" And what I knew from my own experience, but also as a consultant, as a coach, as an educator, and as a researcher, was that that's actually not true, even though that is the common wisdom. And certainly, I'm not saying here that you can have everything all the time, and that you can have success without sacrifice, without effort, without discipline and persistence in the face of disappointment. But what I am saying is that not only is it possible to create a greater sense of harmony among the different parts of your life while achieving greatness, it's actually necessary that the people who are most successful, even by external markers of fame and wealth and power, those are the folks who are able to figure out in their own way how to bring together the different parts of their lives over the course of their lives. And indeed, it's their commitments to family, to community, and to their private selves, their minds, bodies, spirits. That's what gives them the strength, the resources, the support that they need to be successful in the professional world. So reason one was to address this issue of, you have to sacrifice everything. Right. Not true.
And you're saying it's a false choice, basically. It's a false choice that it holds us back from the kinds of success, the kinds of happiness that you're talking about.
Indeed. That to think in terms of the binary work-life balance, right, which is a term that I have been railing against for decades, and I think we're making some progress there because more people are talking instead about work and life integration or harmony over the course of life, and that the balance concept just doesn't work because it forces you to think in terms of trade-offs. If your mindset is, what am I going to have, work or life? Then you're always thinking in terms of what you have to give up.
Yeah, there's always loss.
There's always something to lose. And of course, your employer sees that as well. If you're working for somebody and you say, I need some more balance, what your boss is probably thinking is, okay, you're taking something from me, right, and I've already got nothing, so right, how's this going to work?
Where's that go now?
So we've really got to be focusing the conversation on what I refer to as four-way wins. Things that you can do that are within your control that enable you to create value in some way, some demonstrably improved result, not just at work, not just for yourself, not just for your community, not just for your family, but for all four. And what I've discovered in asking that question of students and clients around the world, like tens of thousands of them now, is that everybody can answer that question with an affirmative response. Like, yeah, here's something I could try. And that's a big part of what we're trying to get people to do with this model and with these examples. So the first reason I wrote this book was to show examples of wildly successful people who have shown that you can integrate the different parts of your life and be incredibly successful. In fact, you need to. Mm-hmm. And the other was to really drill into the skills that they developed naturally, in most cases unwittingly, to really break down for the reader, here are the skills that people use to enact this kind of life, to lead the lives that they want, and to illustrate those in the cases of these 6 people that I profile. And then in the second half of the book, to curate the best of positive psychology, organizational psychology, the current research, and convert it into exercises that people can do, anyone can do, right, to practice these skills in any way they want, in any order they want. So this is different than the Total Leadership book in the sense that you can just pick and choose whatever you want to focus on. Mm-hmm. In fact, the book starts with a self-assessment. It takes just a few minutes, mm-hmm, which you can also do for free online, that shows you, all right, of these 18 skills that I've described and illustrated, which ones do you want to focus on? Right. And then you choose which ones you want to develop by reading the cases about them, mm-hmm, and or just going right to the exercises.
If we can, let's talk a little bit about the stories, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, it's an engaging set of stories that you offer. I mean, we have Michelle Obama, Bruce Springsteen, Eric Greitens, Sheryl Sandberg, mm-hmm, Julie Foudy, Tom Tierney. Why and how did you decide to focus on these individuals?
So how did I come up with these 6? Well, for years now, I've been asking our MBA students who take my Total Leadership class, right, to write a leader biography, to choose somebody who they want to focus on, who they want to just discover more about, and to look at their lives and their careers, mm-hmm, through the lens of the 3 principles of total leadership. In what ways are these people being real? That's the right first principle. Acting with authenticity by knowing what's important to you, your values and your vision. Being whole, respecting the whole person, mm-hmm, knowing that there are these different parts of your life and that they do affect each other, your work, your home, your community, your private self. And then to be innovative, the third principle, mm-hmm, constantly learning and experimenting with new ways of getting things done. Those are the 3 principles. So go out, dear student, and find somebody who you want to learn more about and write up how they've done this. So I've read hundreds of those biographies, which is part of what persuaded me that, it's out there, and this is a way to approach what it means to lead the life you want. So that was one source. Got it. Another was just people I admire and wanted to learn more about myself. And the other are, clients or people that I knew about, and I was just asking around, who do you know? Who do you know? And then ultimately I wanted to try to create a representative sample. So there's 3 men and 3 women. Mm-hmm. There's 2 each from the business sector, from sports and entertainment, as well as from the the public sector. Mm-hmm. And so, the purpose there is to illustrate that people leading the lives they want are everywhere. Right. And you may not identify with Michelle Obama or Bruce Springsteen or Sheryl Sandberg, but you can learn from them. Yeah. So it's not like you have to model your life after them, mm-hmm, but let's look at what they've done and the skills that they have really mm-hmm mastered that's enabled them to lead the lives that they truly want, that you can learn from and use yourself.
And I certainly appreciate the strong message that comes from the selection of these 6 subjects, which is, leadership, work-life integration, right? The work and life, mm-hmm, and community and self. It's a universal question. It's a universal challenge, perhaps. It's a universal opportunity. That's not just in the realm of business, right, or just in the realm of a certain kind of person. And I think these stories really bring that to life.
That was definitely part of my intention, was to demonstrate that these issues are not just in the business world, but mm-hmm that really anyone who's got a sense of ambition, really, and need to learn about, how do I bring the different parts of my life together in a way that works? Because, so many people that I run into every single day are feeling this sense of being overwhelmed and right things are out of control, and so this approach is helpful mm-hmm in giving people a model for what they can do and how to do it to gain a greater sense of control. And of course, the great paradox, and the reason I chose this title ultimately, is that leading the life you want happens when you discover what is uniquely you, your passions, your interests, and your skills, and converting that into value for other people. So that, the idea is, and this really only came into very, very sharp focus for me when I was reflecting on the book after it was done. Like, what have I learned from this? And that was the big insight, that leading the life you want happens when you take what is, most core to you and make it of use to others.
I appreciate that. It reminds me of the old saying, I don't even know where it comes from, but it's just the simple statement, wherever you go, there you are, right? And wherever we find ourselves, who we are at a core level, at an authentic level, is so essential to being of service to others and ultimately being of service to yourself.
But you have to know what other people around you are interested in, right? So it starts with understanding what matters most to you, but then you've got to take that outside in view. Like, who are the important people in my life and in my world, and what do they really need from me? And so there's, some of the exercises are just about that issue of identifying the critical people and talking to them to clarify what they expect, what they need from you when they look at you. And they look up to you or look, at you. What is it that they see? And using that knowledge that comes from these exercises, which really raise your awareness, your consciousness of who you are, who the people around you are, and what they need. And then, on the basis of that kind of diagnostic work, to discover new ways of creating value for them and for you. And that's what makes this about leadership and about sustainable change, because it all leads to taking action that's going to make things better for you and for them.
Yeah. So if we can, let's focus on some of the stories that bring the total leadership principles of be real, be whole, be innovative to life. Now, I'm a Bruce Springsteen fan, I should say that, and the story you tell is riveting. It's a riveting account of Springsteen for someone who considers himself a giant fan. Now, he makes a comment within this profile that two of the best days of his life were the day he picked up the guitar and the day that he learned how to put it down. How does that illustrate the principles that we're discussing here today?
Yeah, Bruce's story is really quite amazing. It was so much fun to write. And I think what that particular quote represents is another really important theme of the book that I saw in all these different stories, and that is this idea of evolution, and conscious learning by attending on a persistent basis to the question of who am I, what matters to me, who matters to me, and how can I best live as they need me to live as well as how I need to live. Finding his voice and his identity in getting that guitar. He was very, very fortunate, to have that. And most people don't have that, moment when they're 12 years old to discover, oh, this is now who I am, and this is who I was meant to be. But people can discover that through continual exploration, and then ultimately, much later in his life, as all the 6 people in this book demonstrate, they changed a lot from where they started. So another one of the kind of myths that I'm trying to bust with these stories is that you're born with this capacity to be great. Not true. It's a matter of, yes, skill. There's a lot of luck, but there's also persistence, discipline, passion, and courage to pursue that which is most important to you and to the people around you. So, much later in life, as other aspects of his life became even more important, like when he became a father, he realized, I got to make room for other aspects of my life now. And so the conscious, deliberate choice to change again and to rest and to make room for other people, like the people he was creating with Patty, that represented yet another stage in his development.
Yeah. I mean, we aren't static as people, and the guitar, I really like the way you put it, because the guitar says to him, this is who I was meant to be, but it's not all he was meant to be, right? He was meant to be so much more, and he creates that space. Yeah, such a compelling right before bed story. I woke up energized the next morning.
I'm so glad to hear that, Jeff.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, Bruce's story is especially valuable in teaching the skill of creating cultures of innovation, which basically means he's somebody who is learning all the time, and he's just pushing everybody around him to, discover new capacities, new ways of living, of expressing their talents. And that's why he's such an inspirational leader of his band, of his fan base, of so many people in the world.
Yeah. So Michelle Obama, our First Lady.
Yes.
Another really compelling story.
And somewhat controversial. I'm sure there are people watching who are thinking, what? Michelle Obama, leader? I don't get it.
I was convinced. I'll tell you that much.
Good, I'm
From
glad.
the read, I was convinced. Now, she makes...
But did you come in skeptical?
I came in... probably not knowing enough,
right?
Knowing that there was a very public role that she plays, but not knowing to the extent to which she was involved in organizations earlier in her career, and then the extent to which she was championing causes throughout her time, as the First Lady. So it was very instructive to me.
Good.
There's a quote from her at one point, I think when she's a university administrator, right? It's a wonderful profession, by the way. If what you're doing doesn't bring you joy every single day, what's the point? Right? And that's the question she's asking herself, I think, both about her professional career, but also the ways in which she's engaging with her children and with her community, which is incredibly strong. So what lessons does Michelle Obama, what lessons does she present?
Yeah, so the three skills that I hone in on in terms of analyzing her story are her capacity to align her actions with her values, to really do the hard work of figuring out, all right, what matters most to me, what do I need to be doing? And the quote that you chose is emblematic of that. She's asking the question on a regular basis, and then taking action. The second one is managing boundaries intelligently, and her story about how she arrived at the White House and how she really thought through and negotiated what it was going to be like for her and her daughters is just a wonderful example of what's possible, even under the most white-hot scrutiny of the entire world, to figure out, all right, how am I going to bring the different parts of my life together in a way that works not just for me but for my children?
Right.
And the third piece is
and before will you say a little bit more about boundaries? Like how should we think about boundaries?
Well, boundaries, by that I mean the spaces between the different parts of our lives. And there's two ways to think about boundaries. One is to create firm boundaries that are impenetrable, that allow you to focus on one person or one group or one project at a time.
Now I'm dad. Now I'm work Jeff.
And I can't do anything else.
Got it.
And this is the only thing I'm going to do right now. I'm just going to focus just in on this one person or this one thing right now. So that's what we mean by creating a boundary that is firm and as impenetrable as you can make it. But then there's another way of thinking about boundaries, and that is to make them permeable. And I don't have a strong view about which is better, because sometimes you need to have those firm, impermeable boundaries. And sometimes you need to make them more porous to allow different parts of your life to come together in ways that are mutually enriching. The key is what's working.
Sure.
What's working for you, what's working for the people around you. So I don't think there's one best way. The best way is the way that works for you and for the people that matter to you, and that means continually checking in. Is this working?
Yeah, and being really conscious about them.
It's all
which
about,
I think is what that skill offers.
Exactly. Right. And then the third skill of Michelle Obama's is to be embracing change courageously. And this is a woman who has taken some really difficult decisions to try new things that put her in a zone that was anything but comfortable, in pursuit of her core values and living them in a way that she learned from her father, which is another thing that I tried to bring to life in the story.
Absolutely. I'm going to switch gears a little bit here. Now, I know throughout your work with Total Leadership, you've created and you've led countless peer coaching groups, learning communities. Right now at Wharton, we have hundreds of MBA students who are in a voluntary program that draws upon your work and other faculty members to talk about passion and purpose and principles within their lives. I look around, there's lean-in circles, there are true north groups, right? This conversation feels really relevant in today's world. And so given that, are these exercises, are they best experienced in a group? And what advice would you have for managers, for parents about, maybe how the exercises that you describe can best be used?
Well, you'll find that many of the exercises do explicitly,
they require
instruct you to work with other people.
Sure.
Some of the things you can do on your own, but then many require you to engage other people in your learning and discovery. And there are two main reasons for that. That, peer-to-peer learning, in my view, is why it's so valuable and so powerful. One is that it builds in accountability. You make a public commitment, and by that I mean to another person, outside of yourself, that you're going to try something, and ask them to help you to, stay on it.
Sure.
And if they've got a good reason to do that, well, that's going to put pressure on you, which is a good thing that most people need. Accountability pressure is one highly valued aspect of any kind of peer-to-peer learning, but the other is support. Encouragement, reinforcement, and another perspective that helps you to see, especially when you're both doing the work of exploring, what matters most, who matters most, what can I do to change to make things better all the way around. If you're doing that as well as I am, I'm learning a lot just by trying to help you and listen to your, challenges and concerns in creating meaningful, sustainable change. So you get accountability pressure, you get support, and you get another perspective that someone else can bring to you that you can't see. And the bonus, of course, when you're helping other people to learn, what it means for them to lead the lives that they want, is that you develop new insights in trying to help them, which, Jeff, is my kind of secret. The reason I write these books and teach these courses and work with clients in all kinds of different settings is because these questions then are top of mind for me all the time because I'm trying to find solutions, even though I've been at this for decades. It's a lifelong quest.
As we start to wrap up here, you make the argument that leading the life you want is about consciously compassionate action, right? About helping others. So what advice do you have for our audience, for your readers, about how to find that kindness, for others and especially for themselves?
Well, that is, again, the kind of paradoxical idea behind the title, that you become more free to pursue the things that matter most to you when you take your resources, your assets, your skills, and try to apply them in the service of other people. And this is illustrated in virtually all 6 of these stories. And it's such an important idea, and it's been around forever. I mean, most of the world's religions preach this. And the reason that they do is because it works. And it's something further that most people need to be reminded of. Because we are, ultimately, we're animals as well as gods, right? And so we've got these competing tensions in terms of our motivations. But anyone can take small actions to do what they can to think about the needs of other people and use your time and energy to try to serve them. Even in the most constrained and even horrific circumstances, this is possible. In fact, and the Eric Greitens story illustrates this particularly well. It's a means of survival that the way people get through really trying circumstances, like in Hell Week for Navy SEALs training, or worse, in concentration camps in World War II, which is where Viktor Frankl discovered, this idea that we need meaning in our lives, and meaning comes from creating value from other people, for other people, and you can always find a way to do that.
Stu, thanks so much for being here with us today. Leading the Life You Want, Skills for Integrating Work and Life, just out from Harvard Business Review Press.
Thank you, Jeff.